Wow, does that make you feel old when he's talking about a history timeline? I don't like to think I'm that old. I'll tell you a nice little Joe Panettiere story. You guys want to hear one of those? So Joe, is this the slide changer? Joe's one of the hardest working guys in our space, had MSP Mentor way back in the day, and it was like the go-to for news, which is really hard to find these days, especially in the managed services space. We were just chatting about this because the MSP space has grown so fast. He's referencing 2004, which is when I started in the MSP space back at the Level Platforms days. And back then, it was like this dark little corner of the channel that we were all super happy to be in, serving SMB. It was the transition from reseller to managed services. And we were just kind of in our own little sandbox. There was no venture capital. There was no private equity. If there was an acquisition that was going to be done down in our space, it was generally a large company. Dell, Cisco, and we used to talk about the acquisitions that they would do because they would come down to our space and they would take technology that had been developed enough and tested enough and used enough in the SMB space. What they would do is take it up to the enterprise space and start selling direct, and then forget the channel, and then we were all kind of left trying to find that replacement tool. And you fast forward to today, and it's absolutely incredible what has happened in our space. I used to get excited when I ran into like a $2 million MSP. Now I'm having meetings daily with $200 million MSPs. We actually made a forecast last week at Beyond, at our user conference, that we foresee within the next probably year and a half, $1 billion MSP. Like, these are things that we weren't even thinking about years ago. We were just trying to make enough money selling software to buy beer, right? So it's kind of a really cool journey. But if you could imagine, there was a day when, probably 20 years ago, when we were younger, and I like to tell this story because we were out at an event, and we would still wear suits back then, if you remember. Thanks, millennials, for changing that up. I really do appreciate that. We would sit, we would do the reception, the welcome reception, and then we'd go to the bar, and we would wait for the old guys to go to bed so that we could go out to the clubs or out to the bars. Yes, we used to do that. And there was one night, there's probably about 15 of us, and I think it was in Dallas, Texas, and we're sitting around outside, and then this old guy, Dean, I don't even remember where he worked or what he was doing, but God, he had to be, in my mind, probably 80. He's probably younger than I am now, but I thought he was like 80 years old. I was waiting for him to go to bed so that we could go out. And finally he did, and we caught Joe sitting in the lobby writing, and I said, hey, come along, we're going out. And we did. We found these clubs in the dirty parts of town, because that's, the most fun clubs. And do you remember this? We all walked in, and Joe couldn't get in because he was wearing white sneakers. Right. So we're all sitting there going, well, we can't leave Joe behind, but we really want to have a good time. So, Joe's like, don't worry about me. I'll go back to the hotel. I'm good. You guys go. We went in there probably for about 2.5, 3 hours. And finally, lights come up, they take your drinks away, they start pepper spraying everybody, get the hell out. And we all run outside, and who's sitting there? Joe Panettiere on the sidewalk typing his article. So he would never give up. He would still hang out, which was awesome. You remember that? Yeah, that was a long time ago, man. Jesus, I feel old. But I'm not. Very honored and privileged to be standing here today. I know this is a very technical audience, probably more technical than most of the events that we actually go to. As much as I've been in the IT space and been around for 25 years now, I'm not technical by any means whatsoever. I know I'm not even going to pretend to be technical. Instead, what I'm going to talk about is kind of trends that we're actually seeing as far as buying patterns that end users are having, how people are consuming technology these days. Because it's something that we actually have taken a look at Pax8, where we don't want to be the traditional organization, right? This organization, it has been all about disruption, right? Disruption for us is what we've always wanted to be. And in the MSP space, we have the liberty to do those kinds of things, because that's in essence what we all try to do in IT, is we try to be disruptors. We try to forward think. We try to evolve and grow and think in places that we don't normally. And we're all now these days talking about AI and cybersecurity, all those important hot topics, but we're all trying to figure out how to make money doing it. But these are the things that we all should be doing as technologists. So in 2018, a little bit of history lesson, 2018, Pax8 was a distributor, right? Plain and simple, distributor. but they wanted to reinvent themselves. They wanted to do it differently. They wanted to be very MSP focused, and that's what they did, where they picked the MSP space. And if you take a look at what the traditional distributors were doing, they were just trying to pick, pack, ship, and be one for all. Whether you're an MSP or a reseller or a VAR or whatever, they just wanted to be something for everybody. And we saw the growth happening in the MSP space and wanted to really narrow in on that. But a lot of the traditional disties hadn't figured that out. They couldn't bill recurring revenue. God, what a pain in the ass that was. Right? They couldn't provide great tech support. They didn't have partner programs. They didn't understand the MSP model versus the traditional pick, pack, ship model. This opened the door for Pax8 to actually enter the market. And they set up a campaign called the Wingman campaign. You guys remember that? Anybody? Come on, we're all not that old. And we got your back was the idea, right? We're going to be your wingman. We're going to barrel through this with in the managed services space. Well, being the idea that we like to be disruptors, we're going to continue. And I've got something here for you guys today that we've been talking about for about a year now. And I want to show you kind of a little bit about what we're working on, but more so where the market is heading. And more so how we need to think about how people are going to consume technology as time goes on. And I'll give you a couple of reasons as to why that's happening. Now, first of all, one of the benefits of focusing in on the managed services space is that we've invested quite a bit into the community aspect of this. We're obviously at every single event. As soon as Charlie, CRO of Roost, called me and said, we're doing our event, I said, give me top spot. And he said, I haven't even told you how much it costs. I'm like, I don't care, I'll be there because these are the things that we need to be doing in our community. And Roost is a phenomenal partner, growing. Obviously, I'm meeting a lot of new faces here too, which is fantastic. So we're continuing to make that investment into the actual community through great partner programs, tech support, single billing, all the things that MSPs are looking for to make your lives better. But on top of that, we have a phenomenal academy team that does a ton of training and things for our partners to help them grow their businesses. Just a quick snapshot of where we are. We actually have over, these numbers are a little bit old now, but 110 vendors in our marketplace. We have over 35,000 MSPs that are transacting through Pax8 worldwide. We've actually now opened offices in 35 different countries around the world. I was actually literally in Lithuania about 3 months ago, and I've never been to Lithuania. I could barely point to it on a map, and I like geography. But I'm in Lithuania, and I go out for dinner with these MSPs, and I'm like, I have no idea what I'm in for. No idea. Do they speak English even, right? Am I wearing the right thing? I have no idea. They look, talk, want to be just like you. It is absolutely incredible that this managed services model not only obviously has accelerated the North American market, but now we're even heading into Eastern Europe, and we have people that are adopting the managed services market. And of course, they all want to know, what are the Americans doing? What are the Americans doing? Let us know what the Americans are doing, because that's what they want. So a phenomenal opportunity. So we're even seeing growth. One of the hot new areas for managed services is the Baltic region, which is incredible. Those 35,000 MSPs are actually representing over 400,000. You are representing over 400,000 end user companies that are transacting, which means those 400,000 end user companies represents 10 million plus users, right? The great part about this, and why I'm showing you this data, is because when you think about all the immense amount of data that we are collecting, and that's one of the strengths of where distribution is. Right? It's not about pick, pack, ship, to be honest. At the end of the day, it's about the information that we actually have. But here's where traditional space, I'm not supposed to use the D word anymore. I get charged $100 every time I say the D word. I think I'm already $500 in the hole right now, so hopefully nobody from my team is here. Traditional distribution has this data, an immense amount of data about you, about your end user customers, what they're transacting, when they're transacting, how they're transacting, why they're transacting, but nobody leverages it properly. And this is where we started thinking about this. So we're literally doing a transaction, one transaction every minute. We're well on our way to head towards one transaction every second. So, I talk about marketplace, and this is kind of the new way in which people are going to consume things. But what does that actually mean? It's just another catchphrase. Think about when the cloud came out. We were all in the cloud for 20, 30 years before we defined it as the cloud. Thank you, Microsoft. But now it's actually called the cloud. So now everybody wants in the cloud, even though it's not something that was technically new. It just got defined. Well, marketplace is the same. People like using this as a new catchphrase, but to be honest, what's different than what they've done traditionally? And that's what I want to, again, talk about. So, we took our engineering team. Yes, we have an engineering team. And we took our engineering team, 47 engineers, all in Denver, Colorado. We took them, we put them into a room for about a week and said, what can we do to move this ball forward? And they started looking at the data. how much data that we've got. How much data can we use? And what data can we actually use to help MSPs be better MSPs? What can we do to make your lives faster, better, sexier, richer, whatever it is? And that's what we started focusing on, and that is what I'm happy to present to you today. So, we like to think that we're still disrupting the market, because what I'm going to show you is something that, to my knowledge, no other traditional competitor of mine, see, I didn't say the D word, no competitor of mine is actually doing. So I think it's going to give us a competitive advantage, but it's more so going to give you a competitive advantage. And this is where the market is actually going. So we're disrupting, but we're disrupting by using innovation. We are a product innovation company, right? It goes well beyond the traditional sense of what this market is. Quick market snapshot. A lot of this data comes from Canalys. We've spent a lot of time working with Canalys on market trends and everything like that. The number I want you to focus on is that white spot there, 76,000 MSPs. This is by far the largest number of MSPs that I have ever seen. We always ask these questions. There's no great place to go or great resource to go to say how many MSPs are in the market. And usually the numbers are coming out, but usually they're coming out a little bit lower than this. So the thing is, there are more MSPs in the market than ever before. Remember that dark little corner I was talking about? People have figured it out and they all want in. We're starting to see the average age of an MSP business owner getting younger and younger and younger, which is a fantastic thing for this industry because it means that people are starting to invest in it. We're again seeing private equity and venture capital in the billions of dollars. Previous company that I worked for, Datto, small little startup in Connecticut. I literally started there with the first 50 employees. Our CEO was 24, 25 at the time. He was just a really good tech who had a really good idea. 10 years later, we sold it for $6.2 billion after a public offering, right? This is the reflection of the market that we're actually doing. The other part of this too, and you think about it, like 5 years ago, six years ago, the MSSP spot wasn't necessarily there, but that's there now. You've got telco that's looking at the MSP space, trying to figure out how they can get in here. Usually it's done through acquisitions or some type of partnership, so we're seeing a lot of telco coming in. Those poor print guys are still trying to figure out how to get revenue, right? But they just keep hanging around and hanging around. Hey, you guys want to come to my party? Nope, we don't. And you're not allowed at ours. But they keep hanging around. So, you know, the competition that you guys are facing is actually getting more and more intense. But one of the things that I love about my job, I literally travel around the world just hanging out with MSPs, is I ask the question. I'll always ask you the question. First one is, how's business? And it has been a long time since I've had an MSP tell me, you know what, it's not that good. Typical response these days is, man, it's awesome, or I can't find enough people, or I can't onboard as many people as I need to onboard. So times are good in this space, right? You know, we talk about this being a golden era, but it doesn't seem to end. So let's just keep riding that wave, and everybody wants a piece of it. The thing is, though, we need to start thinking again forward, right? We're talking about new technologies and different ways of managing. We talk about automation and how automation is something that, you know, we're continuing to see more and more in our business. I mean, you came to an automation conference, for Pete's sake. So why are we looking at old traditional ways of doing things? So, you know, as part of the exercise of figuring out what we can do with the data to help our partners, you guys, we also want to take a look at how do we actually deliver that? And this is where Marketplace comes in. So I want to talk about cloud marketplaces. And again, I want to show you that this isn't just a catchphrase. Now, if you take a look at the way in which you consume technology yourselves, these might look familiar. These are sites that you go to, websites that you go to, marketplaces that you go to, including our own. These are not marketplaces. These are dumb product catalogs. You're literally clicking on a logo, you're filling in a form, you're getting provision licenses, here you go, have a good day. This is not a marketplace. This is the D word. So, what does the future look like? And why are we here? I think there's two reasons why this conversation has been accelerated. Number one has to be the pandemic, right? We all were happy doing our things, 2019, 2020. And then all of a sudden, you know, the world, everywhere around the world changed. Not only changed, obviously, on how we were living our lives, but it changed the way in which we transact. And what happened was we started finding new ways to transact, new ways to purchase things, new ways to do business. And then that lasted not the initial 2 weeks, but the 3 years. But we got used to those ways, right? Uber Eats was very popular. Food delivery services, unbelievable these days. Grocery delivery services, anything that you can do online, we tend to do online. But unfortunately, what's happened is people also think they've become experts in pretty much any area that you could possibly want to, including technology. There's a Canalys report that came out recently that said end users are starting to make buying decisions on technology 2 months before they're even talking to an MSP. In our world, that's scary. And if you think about 2020 or pre-2020, the world was scary, right? We're talking about hackers and ransomware back then, and everybody was terrified. And when it came to tech, it's just, call my MSP. I don't want to deal with this. This is what I'm paying you for. I just don't want to deal with it. But then the pandemic forced us to not engage with other humans and then again become experts on our own. Perfect example of this, I needed a new washer and dryer, right? And typically what you would do is you'd go down to an appliance shop or Home Depot or something like that. You'd go talk to the appliance salesperson and they would tell you, here's the newest model, here's the whistles and bells, here's what it does, buy this one. And you would just do that, right? You would buy whatever one you liked the best or whatever one they sold you the best, not knowing whether they were making more money on this. Was it a special? Is it really the best device? Is it the best price? I'm sitting here in the store, this is what I want, I'll just buy it. And recently went through that exercise. So I went over to Home Depot and I did the same thing. I went over to an appliance shop, did the same thing. And then I went home and did research on everything that I had just learned. I talked to other users or read other user feedback. You saw the star systems that we all use to rate things, right? Did my own research and realized there's actually this all-in-one GE unit. That sounds awesome. You put your clothes in, it washes it, it dries it, and then you're done. You don't even need to change your laundry over. However, when I went home, that's what my wife wanted to buy, and then I go home, I start doing research and realize this thing's actually a piece of crap. It doesn't dry your clothes properly, although there's an MSP that gave me a hack on how to fix that if I end up buying the unit. Of course, because that's what we do in our space. So I get home, I do a ton of research. It's rated 3.5 out of 5. There's 20,000 reviews from other users saying, I don't like it, I hate it, it's too big. Yeah, my wife bought it, of course. But the key is, we had the ability to go and do our own research. Hell, I didn't even need to go to the stores in order to start doing that research, and I could buy it online. More recently, I have an old truck. I have 4 daughters, God bless them all, or me. I have 4 daughters that all learned how to drive a pickup truck. I've always figured growing up, if you could drive a pickup truck, you could drive anything. So I made my daughters learn how to drive a pickup truck. You can imagine after 4 daughters, this thing is pretty beat up, very beat up. You can't even tell, there's dents on dents, and you can't even tell anymore. So this thing, I've got this truck, and it's starting to cost more than the truck is actually worth. So I needed a new vehicle, new family vehicle for everybody. What did I do? I'm like, you got to take a look at Carvana. And I went and bought, I was not only sold my truck online, but I bought a new one online. Didn't test drive it, sight unseen. They give you an opportunity to return it afterwards if you're not happy with it, but I did that and literally transacted tens of thousands of dollars transaction buying a car, something that we traditionally would never do online. I did it online, and it was a beautiful experience. Insurance was done, plates were done, everything was done, didn't talk to a human being. The only human being I talked to was the guy that dropped off the car and picked up my shitty truck, right? This is the way people are starting to think about transacting, and unfortunately, it's starting to bleed into our space when it comes to technology. Now, it's a more dangerous conversation because a lot of you spend time, and part of the value out of what MSPs do is you're picking out the technologies that are best, not only for your organization, but for your end user organizations. And now they're doing their own research and calling you saying, I want this, right? And then it becomes a different type of sale that you're actually doing. So how do we get ahead of this? Oh, by the way, that's the first reason, the pandemic. Let me give you the second reason. Gen Z, God bless them. Anybody identify here as Gen Z? I got a couple hands. I'm going to apologize now. You Tide Pod eating monkeys. Don't do that anymore. That's not healthy. Now I sound like an old man. I have, again, I mentioned to you 4 daughters, and they are terrified of their own shadows. Absolutely terrified of their own shadows. They order food to the door. They don't go and answer the door. Hell, my daughter called me the other night. I'm sitting in a bar somewhere in some city, and she calls me the other night, and she goes, there's a dog on the front lawn. I'm like, and? And she's like, I don't know why it's there. It looks shifty. And I'm like, so don't go out there. And she's like, but it's sitting there, and I don't see the owner. And I'm like, and what? Well, maybe somebody wants me to come out of the house and they're going to kidnap me. I'm like, then don't leave the house. What are you talking about? Why are we having this stupid conversation? Just leave the stupid dog alone. It'll be fine. Like this is kind of that generation, right? They don't want to transact. They don't want to talk to other people. They grew up during the course of the pandemic and got forced to do it this way, so they think that this is the normal way to do things. They don't remember what it was like to consume stuff 4, 5, 6 years ago. So this for them is normal. Same thing is happening when they actually come into our space when it comes to technology. 25% of the workforce by next year will be Gen Zers. So we need to pay attention on how they want to transact in new ways. And again, those are the kinds of things that we're thinking about. I'm on the board of directors for CompTIA, okay? We have regular meetings. Very successful executives are part of this board, people I madly respect from all over the world. We get together on a quarterly basis, and we do a big annual meeting. And at this big annual meeting, we like to bring guest keynotes into our meetings. And what we do is we brought in this Gen Z marketing company. They were featured in the New York Times. They were winning a whole bunch of awards because it's literally started by Gen Zers. And what their goal was to teach organizations how to market and sell to Gen Z. So we brought these 3 Tide Pod eating people out. I'm not going to let it go. I'm not going to let it go. We brought them out, and they started their presentation, and we're all sitting around. And they start the presentation by introducing themselves, and then they give us their pronouns, which is somewhat normal these days. And then they gave us their zodiac signs. And not just, I was born in January, therefore I'm an Aquarius. It was like moon signs and sun signs or night signs and days. Like, I don't know what the hell is going on. And, okay, try not to be the old guy in the room and let them do that. Then they started talking about their angel numbers. How many of you guys have angel numbers? And how many people want to admit they have angel numbers? Come on, Gen Zer, admit it. Come on. How many people even know what the hell an angel number is? Right. But this is the next generation of buyers that we need to be thinking about. So better damn well get an angel number real quick here, boys. Joe Panettiere is 666, by the way. It's awesome. You're going to see it everywhere now, Joe. Scott Barlow, who's a really good friend of mine, he runs the MSP space over for Sophos, if you're familiar with it. He's on the other side of the table, and he's scratching out all these notes. He's going crazy. And I look over and I'm like, Scott, what are you possibly writing down right now? And he holds up the sign and says, do not hire Gen Z. But this is the wave. This is what's coming. We ask them questions like, they care about sustainability, yet they drink tons of almond milk, which is not sustainable because they really like almond milk. They don't care about security. They really don't care about security because they just assume the bad actors have already got their passwords anyway. Like, these are the types of conflicts that we're going to have to start dealing with as these people ultimately become decision makers in their businesses. But that's fine. We'll cross that bridge when we get to it. But let's start thinking about how we get there. So I want to introduce you to what an actual marketplace is. Now, by the way, we've been talking about this for a year, and last week in Denver, we had our Beyond conference, which is our user conference. We had 1,500 MSPs from all over the world join us last week. What happened was we went GA with this. So what I'm about to show you is live. If you're a Pax8 partner, you can literally go into the marketplace today and toggle this on. It's a toggle right at the top that says New Marketplace. Some of the features I'm going to show you are more roadmap things that we're actually working on and where we can go with this and how it's going to be super cool as time goes on. So now we're going to be using the data to help make our MSPs' lives better. Bundling things, powerful searches, being able to look at all your clients, look at all your different vendors in one place. Make it super easy. So it starts with the Opportunity Explorer. Again, gives you full visibility into everything that your end users are actually doing. It gives you the ability to say, as far as your penetration of products or services into the actual end users, it ranks them amongst each other so that you can actually see and pretty much identify gaps pretty quick. It comes out with a bunch of different lenses. Now, by the way, again, this is all GA. This is literally a couple of days old, and you have the ability to download and work with this right now. First one is called Product Recommendations. What it literally will do is it'll recommend products that potentially are missing from your portfolio. You sold this, this, and this to these actual end users, but these end users did not consume that. Are you aware of this? If there's a better technology or a different technology that maybe we're seeing somebody else consume that looks like, sounds like, feels like one of your end users, we'll say, hey, the MSPs in this area are having success selling this. Maybe you should talk to your end users about that. It'll talk about newer technologies, like think about Roost. I'm at a conference not that long ago in Toronto, and I asked the question, how many people of you guys are using Roost? One person put their hand up, and by the way, she's here. And then I said, how many people have heard of Roost? Nobody put their hands up. I think this is a massive opportunity, because as we continue to see more and more vendors, more and more different type of tech in here, that gives us more and more opportunities to make more and more revenue. So this is where we can actually start proactively making recommendations based on what other MSPs that look like you, talk like you, smell like you, we can actually tell you what it is that other MSPs are actually doing and having success with. Here's the beautiful part about it. It's all AI driven. These aren't people in the background that are looking and making recommendations. This is literally AI that's matching it all up. Our new CEO, who just got promoted to CEO, was our CTO. He is one of the most technical people that you could ever meet. I would put his technical prowess up against pretty much anybody in this industry. It is a beautiful thing when you run into a vendor that has a CEO that is technical because they care about the tech. It has to work, right? So for me, this is his brainchild. This is the whole reason I actually went to work for Pax8 about a year and a half ago. When we talk about security postures, selling cybersecurity is tough, right? Because this is relatively new fields where we're asking our end users to spend more money than they've ever spent before. Well, now we actually have the ability to score each of your end users based on CIS framework, right? NIST is coming. All the other countries that have their own services, those are coming. But right now, it'll actually measure each of your end users based on NIST. And it'll help make product recommendations or identify security gaps to help you in your sales process and your planning process with your end users to say, we need this and this and this in order for you to maintain just the standards. This isn't me, the MSP, saying you need this, this, and this because I want to make more money. This is literally standards across the board for all companies, even enterprise, and you're short. Here's how we can actually get there. Tons of reports and information behind it, as well as, of course, recommendations around the vendors that you should be utilizing to help you in this process. So when you're going in there, you're having a more intelligent conversation based on that CIS framework. Our solution center, similar to everybody going into, say, Amazon and doing their own shopping. I don't know about you, but I mean, I buy everything on Amazon, mostly because I'm on the road all the time. And I go into Amazon, and what I do is I find a product that I want, I find the best rated with the most amount of reviews, and I go and buy it. Well, you, as MSPs, where do you get your information? I hate my backup company, I want to switch to a new backup company. Where do you get your information? You call all the backup companies and start doing demos. Or you come to a conference like this and talk to your peers. What are you using? What do you like? What do you hate? What if we can put it in one place where you can actually go and take a look at these vendors without signing up for their weekly newsletter? Right? So you have the ability to look at other feedback, plug these solutions into your stack to see how it changes your margins. Things like that will give you the ability to actually do your own research before you say, you know what, this is the vendor I think I'm interested in based on star ratings and feedback from other MSPs. Configure, price, and quote, all really, really critical parts. We actually did a ton of enhancing around our CPQ, and I asked my team, I said, basically, what's the number one feature around CPQ, configure, price, quote, that we actually came out with? And one of my guys responded with, well, it actually works now. And I'm like, it didn't work before? And he goes, no. So you're welcome. Our stuff works now. If you've been having any problems there, it definitely apparently works now. And there's more. There's a lot more that's going to come out along with these. Now, let's talk a little bit about where the future's going, okay? Remember, I talked a lot about where end users are now starting to do their own research. They're starting to find their own places to do their own research. What happens if an end user goes to SentinelOne, fills in a form, and wants to buy directly from SentinelOne? Today, we're very fortunate that organizations like S1, as much as they care about the MSP space, they don't want to have a direct relationship with SMB. CrowdStrike, very similar. Microsoft, very similar, right? There's a lot of organizations that are choosing MSP only as well. A lot of vendors in this marketplace are choosing MSP only. But what happens when an end user tries to reach out directly, these leads tend to go into very dark places, and nobody ever gets a phone call back. The other risk is what happens if that vendor gets enough phone calls from the end users that they get tempted to want to sell directly to those end users. So this continues to be, and it has been, by the way, for at least 50 years, the biggest concern from the channel is what happens if my vendor starts selling directly to my end users? Let's be honest. There is no way for that to happen. We've all been threatened by this. We've had organizations come in and try to change this. I left the hardware space. I used to work for Compaq Computers because there was a vendor that came in and said, we are only going to sell direct. They're still kicking around, and yes, you guys still sell some of them, but whatever. So what are we going to do to combat that? Number one, let me introduce you to storefronts. This is available today. This is a white-labeled storefront that you set up on your own site. Two purposes here. Number one is your end users can go in and take a look at their own stuff. They can do their own research based on other products and services that you offer. So they don't need to talk to your salespeople. They don't need to talk to one of your techs. They don't need to phone you, because remember, they hate talking to people. So they want to go in there and do their own research. Well, they're doing it with you in control. You can see what they're clicking on. You can see how long they're hanging out on one page. You can see what they're downloading. So then when you have a conversation with them, it's a smarter conversation to say, I think you're interested in this. Not only that, but it directs them away from these vendors' websites and onto yours. The other part of this, too, is from a prospecting perspective. If you set up a storefront in your local area and somebody just Googles SentinelOne licensing, it gets directed to your site so that they're coming in and shopping on your storefront. So you can manage all your customers, you can prospect with it, make payments, they can even accept quotes. Hell, they can even buy stuff from your website without talking to you. It's beautiful stuff. All white labeled, right? Completely white labeled. Pax8 is invisible in this process. Everything is your brand, your logos, everything that you could possibly want. Tons of configurations so that it doesn't look the same as everybody else's. And again, all of that is available today for our partners. Buy now buttons are going to be set up if they're not already in those storefronts, because again, everybody loves the buy now. I've made my decision, I don't need to talk to anybody, buy now. We are in the process of working with some of the biggest vendors in this market to put buy now buttons on their website. So let's use Microsoft as an example. SMB, one of your end user customers, goes to Microsoft, wants to consume something. They fill in a form. Obviously, somebody at Microsoft or some algorithm is going to look at it and say, too small, don't care. And those leads go into a black hole. Lots and lots and lots of leads. We're working with them now as one of their largest CSPs in the world, along with all the other enterprise organizations that are trying to sell into this space. We're working with them on what's called our customer acquisition engine. It's actually your customer acquisition engine. How it works is you go into the Pax8 portal and you say, I am an MSP, I live in the Tampa area, I only care about a 100-mile radius around Tampa, I only want end users that have X amount of seats and up. You can even go as far as to say, I only care about dentists. So what happens is that if one of these leads goes in to one of these enterprise companies or even MSP-focused companies that want to send leads to you, what they do is if somebody fills that in and hits that buy now button, instead of going to that dark hole, it gets sent here. And then that opportunity gets presented to you if it fits your criteria. You have the ability to swipe left or swipe right on whether you want that lead. Joe, swiping right is good? Swiping left is good? Yes, thank you. So now, you're getting, not only are we eliminating the fear that they're going to sell directly, but we're giving them an avenue to send these leads that are going into these dark holes that they don't want to ignore. Lead generation. Now, why does a vendor want to do this? If you actually take a look at the data, okay? Let me give you a scenario. End user, SMB end user, goes and buys software from an enterprise vendor. The average lifetime value of that deal is 3 years. 3 years worth of revenue they know they're going to get if they sell directly to that end user. If that same end user goes to that enterprise software and they push it back to an MSP, those vendors know that the lifetime value of that contract is not 3 years, it's 15 years, because MSPs are the ones that control the relationship. They control the vendor that you're dealing with. They control the contract. Vendors want to give you these leads because they will make more money in the long run despite having to pay you margin to do so. That's what we're doing. And we're constantly pushing that back on the vendors as to why they want to continue to bring business to the MSP space. So we're in business for two reasons. We're all here to save money or make money. You work with your end users, and your end users buy your stuff to either make money or save money. So what I've shown you today, I've shown you that you can save money through our Opportunity Explorer, looking for your own solutions. We found some efficiencies and apparently fixed what we were working on for Configure, Price, and Quote. Solution Center to help you vet through better vendors. You're going to make more money by product recommendations through upsell, cross-sell, security posture, upsell, cross-sell, all those security solutions based on proper frameworks, storefronts to help you find new business as well as upsell your existing customers, give them the ability to shop the way they want to shop, and then the acquisition engine ultimately bringing you new business. This is all designed and focused to help you guys grow your actual businesses, utilizing what we already have, which is data. With all that being said, it's been a pleasure being up here and talking to all of you. I hope you have a great event, and thank you for your time.